Alright, nice modern Psytrance bass line in Ableton. Here we go. So we're going to start off with Synth 1. This is the init sound. We're going to switch it to mono here. We're going to disable all modulation and all the effects. And then we're going to start tweaking with the filter here. And also the amplifier, ADSR. Envelopes are everything in the Psy bass, you know. We only really want one oscillator going right now, so I'm going to switch it to a saw wave. And I'm going to adjust the filter type, maybe. Maybe not. But this is where we're going to be focusing on primarily. So you have your standard saw, just how you heard right there. And I'm going to drag this down here. This is just my pattern that I already pre-made just to save a little time. So now you have this offbeat Psytrance bass. You know, you hear it in multiple genres, but obviously we're focusing on that progressive, kind of more modernistic sound. So to get there, we're going to kind of turn down all the amp ADSR settings, and then we're going to turn down the filter ADSR settings except for the decay. And we're going to turn down the filter and make sure our envelope amount is turned all the way up. And then we're going to bring down the decay and maybe play with the sustain a little bit. You could play with a little detune. That could be kind of fun for more of traditional trance stuff. So the phase here is another really crucial importance of the Psytrance bass. In this plugin, the phase is already really good at 0. And that's why I kind of keep on just going back to that 0 mark there. But it's fun to kind of play with that. In most synths, you might have to kind of play around with it to find that nice attack that fits your song and your vibe and your track and whatnot. I mean, that's already pretty solid right there. Throw in a little chorus, gets it a little bit wider, sounds a little bit more interesting. That feedback could be really kind of a cool, thing. Sometimes distortion makes it happen a little bit more, but in this case, I'm going to play with a little bit of saturation on the filter section though. That seems really nice. No resonance usually here. Very little to no. Sometimes you can add a little bit, like I'm kind of playing with here. It's just, I like just that subtle saturation though. That's really quite nice. Make sure my other oscillator, my second oscillator isn't... it doesn't sound like it, but sometimes you never know. Yeah, that's solid. So we're going to play with a little EQ here. I'm going to just kind of sweep around and find, you know, anywhere between 5 to 8K I find can kind of get a little honky depending on the key that you're working in. I'm just smoothing it out a little bit right here. I have no idea what that does. Sweeping through again. I'm finding around that 480, 400 range is quite nice. Again, 400 to 500, that's usually where bass kind of gets a little honky, but depending on the key, of course. And really, this is all just a taste. This is kind of getting into the mixing side of it, but it's how you get that really big, fat, warm bass sound. Cool. So we're going to freeze that if I can remember how. Freeze track. Okay, cool. There we have it. Pull it down. How do I do that? Oh, I haven't used Ableton in such a long time. How do I convert it to audio? I know I can like flatten it, but okay, audio track, and then yep, there we go. Cool. So now we have perfectly rendered audio of our bass. And the reason I did it in kind of the offbeat kind of thing was not just for a particular kind of progressive style to start, which we're already pretty much there for that. What I wanted to do though was just get one nice long sustained bass note. And that's what we're looking at here. And I just kind of zoomed into the waveform because I like to convert everything to audio so I can really get into the nitty gritty of things. You can use a sampler too. We'll probably do that here in a moment to program it more. But what we're looking at here is the phase at the tip of the waveform. Like you'll see my pointer. That's what we're really focused on right there. Seeing the start position of where that one shot of our bass sample starts at. So we're going to cut it. And how do I delete that? Okay. Click over here. No. Oops, sorry. Give me just a second. Cubase kid here. Alright. That's not it. Whoa, what just happened? Okay. Alright, gotta cut it again. Alright, there we go. Let me move that out of the way. That's what I'm looking for. And we'll move that into position right there. And that is my dog. Okay. So I took out everything else. And I'm just going to pull this back so I get the full one-shot sample. And I'm just going to make this a quick little loop. Sweet. Yeah, that's sweet. Let's chill. So now we can start tweaking with the phase of where our bass sample starts. And this is the important part. Hear how that gives it a little bit more punch and attack and a little bit higher end? I'll move it and start it later. See how much that changes things, even just a minuscule bit. So phase is everything when it comes to the Psytrance bass. Once you get that in a solid like sample, you are gold. That's the key. Phase is the key. Like phase and envelopes, those are like the two keys to the Psytrance bass. I'm gonna fade it out a little bit because it might click a little bit at the end. It's just kind of a good practice sometimes to do, but it's optional. And I'm going to freeze this again. And that is the dog. Oh, come here. Okay. So I'm looking for an what am I looking for? There is no EQ here. Maybe I can use an EQ3. We'll try an EQ3. This probably won't it sounds like I'm like ripping ass in this chair. It's a leather chair. So we can add like, even with this EQ, I mean, it would work, but it's not very detailed. And I like to get and know where I'm at. gonna use something different. Try to anyways. You can use really whatever EQ you want. It's completely subjective and to taste and whatever kind of gives you the better sound that you're looking for. I'm gonna look for an EQ that I just have. Anything. I don't actually have a whole lot of third-party EQs. I use everything in Cubase usually. Not that. Not that. What do I have in here? No, not that. Of course, Soundtoys doesn't make a EQ. They'd be a great option if they did. Scrolling through here. I'll use the Red 2 EQ. This is a really good EQ. A little bit different. I usually use it on rock stuff, but it'll work here. I'm gonna see what happens if I just cut some of those lows off. Just real subtle, maybe just around 30 hertz or something like that. Not even so much to cut things off, just to make it subbier. Here I'm gonna boost up a little bit of those low-end fundamentals. See where I can get things at. Maybe a little much. I like to accentuate the volume gain on my bands when I'm sweeping. Gonna cut more of those mids out. Scooping them out. That's nice. That's around like 550 or so. I'd imagine. Again, this isn't the most like super detailed EQ. It's kind of like an SSL EQ, but like it sounds completely different. But it's like it's modeled after analog, so that's cool. It's good EQ though, but nice. We're sounding kind of nice and fat over here. And might just kind of play with that high end a little bit. You can make it as dark or as bright as you want. I think I'll leave it as is for now. It seems about right. Bypass it. Subtle differences, but it does make it fatter, warmer, and deeper in groove. Yeah. So I'm going to compress it a little bit. Let me throw that on here. This is another kind of important step. 4:1 ratio here. See if I can dial that in. Cool. And I'm going to bring down the release and the attack for the moment. And I'm going to bring down our threshold just to get, a couple dB of gain reduction going on, compression. And you can play with the attack and release. It's completely subjective at this point. Whatever gives you that fuller feeling, whatever sounds good, some dry wet kind of sounds nice, but I like it full blown, man. I like it like that. I like it full blown. A little bit of release on that compressor sounds nice. There's not much attack to deal with there, but a little bit's kind of nice, I guess. But I mean, it does sound more full when I'm up more, though. Readjust the dog here. Yeah, I'm gonna leave a little bit of that attack and release there. You can play with that all day long, seriously. Yeah, we're going to freeze that and bounce that down. Oh, if I can get down here. Boom. Perfect. And now is that, we have our process based. Nice and pretty. You can kind of tell there's a little bit of very, very subtle differences compared to the one that we were just messing with, but And we can kind of fade extensively. It's, again, completely to taste. All this is subjective. I'm going to move this out of the way, though, because I'm hearing some kind of weird thing happen. And does this fix it? Yeah, cool. Nice, I like the fade. And, you know, we can auto filter this now just to give you an idea. Sounds like a nightclub, you know. You hear that in tracks all the time. It's sick. Yeah. Anyways. And gotta create a MIDI track here. Put this over here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna resample the bass one more time. So that's our kind of official bass stab, right? That's the sound that we want. But we're going to resample it, and let me find... Oops. Actually, you know what? Let's work on the kick first. Haven't covered that yet. Kick is another really important part. So this is just the kick by itself. Here's the EQ settings. I'm using kick 2. I made this before the tutorial because it would have been like a 2-hour tutorial. But I basically just cut all the harsh frequencies that I just didn't want in there. I smoothed it out by cutting some of the boxiness in there. And I added a little bit of low end. Can add distortion if we want. Can even add a little top end click. To me, that just didn't sound right. It sounded kind of a little too smacky, a little too woody. You can even play with sub control and amp and stuff. Here, I kind of just ducked down. I just played with it to taste. I mean, literally, that's how this plugin works. Is like, aside from like the EQ and maybe the compressor and stuff like that, you just gotta work with it. You know, I can bring these things up and down and get a slightly different kick every time. So it's completely subjective there. You just gotta go with what fits your track. Kind of like that. Nice. Now length on kick is super important. I kept this one kind of long for the progressive style. But if we shorten that, you know, this is around 341, 400. I like it around 3 or 400. Because I can always cut it and like fade it and make it shorter if I need to later on. So I usually make my kicks a little longer, around 400 or so. Gets a lot of that nice tail sub in there from the kick. And that is literally all I did with the kick. We'll bounce that down to audio too. I like to work in audio specifically because it gives me way more control than MIDI notes, but they both have their time and place, obviously. I just like the visual representation. It's like working in a big giant sampler. Which, I mean, essentially you kind of are anyhow. Huh? Cool. Let me see here. I need to readjust the volume. Push this little loop thing here. And we are solid again. Open that up. You zoom in here and fiddle with this. So here you can see that there's the beginning of the bass below and the kick above, right? You see the beginning of the 0 point crossing, which is that line down the middle of each like audio channel on either of the stereo sides. That is the 0 point crossing. And when you're messing around with that, fading it pushes the waveform and it levels it down to obviously no level. It's a volume fade. So you see how the kick phase starts up, and then as it starts up, the bass one also starts up. So right where the bass tail, or the kick tail ends, the bass begins. That means that you're going to have really good phase relationship with the kick and bass here. Even though they're not directly layered on top of one another, this is how they gel and they glue very nicely together. So let me spread these out here. Get ourselves a 1-bar loop going. And here we are. And now I think we will use a simpler. You can use any sampler, but I'll just use whatever's in Ableton here. And we'll just, I think we can just drag this down here, can't we? How do I do that? Okay, highlight that, click in here, go down here, boom. Okay, cool. Yeah, there you go. And you could have just phase here too, the beginning, start and end of our bass here. I need to look for, because this is in the key of G sharp, I know these samplers, they always value everything to the key of C, they repitch everything, and that'll put me way out of whack, so I gotta fix that really quick. But yeah, really quick, we'll go down here and go through the sustain and the envelopes. We'll just kind of shut most of them off except the sustain. Turn the volume back down or up to 0, because when you import things into samplers and stuff into Ableton, they typically end up being 12 dB quieter. I don't know why they do that, but safety precaution. I'm going to take off this LFO and maybe play with the filter a little bit here in a sec, but because you can resample the bass with more filter or less filter. It's getting a little too clicky there. Oh, that's cool. I can zoom in there. Okay, let's go into the controls here. And where's the key? Don't I have it? I mean, I suppose we can use the transpose. No, okay, that's key. That's key tracking. I don't think that's what we need. I'll just use the transposition. Yeah. Let me count here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I think we're 4, or are we 5? This part's always fun. Sorry. Come on, 8. Come on, 8. What is this doing? Okay. 0 that out. 8. -8. There we go. Cool. Perfect. And we're solid on the key now, so I just got it so whatever I play on my keyboard or I program into the piano roll, everything is following music theory instead of sampler theory, right? Okay, this, I forget. How do I adjust the quantization grid? And oh, right click, okay, 16th. I still see nothing. Oh, because I have loop on. I have loop on. Now I gotta figure out. Okay, boop. There we go. It's like riding a bike. You never really forget, right? Okay, so there's our G sharp. Yeah, I'm just gonna plug us back in our standard offbeat prog oompa feel. Just a and cool. I'm just kind of playing around with stuff here. Velocity can be really fun. There's a standard volume velocity on this one. At least that's what it sounds like. And what's messing up here? Do I need to shorten these? Sometimes that helps. See how that kind of gives it that, just that, you know, this is stuff that you probably already know here, but nice. Okay, 0 out that. Quick attack. Let's try with a little bit more filter, 72 here. I wish there was a curve. I don't think that's on this one though. Okay. There we go. And you could just already hear here, like you can do so much with just that alone, you know. Let's try another filter type. Okay, bad idea. Let's lower the amount, maybe the frequency. Oh yeah, that kind of gives it that nice percussive feel if we're looking for something a little bit more tribally and percussive. Okay, what is that? I have something else playing. Oh, my other bass layer. Nice. That gets really kind of a cool percussive feel to it. Could be a completely different bass, you know? Let me play with the sustain and the decay. We can get that sucker real tight if we want. I mean, just listen to that. That gets pretty tight pretty quick. Oh, that's what she said. Okay. Maybe no filter on this. Where am I at? Okay. Open this back up. Let's spread these guys across here and start making our pattern. You know, the more full-on type. It could be literally anything. I'm just playing around here. Try not to get too sucked in here. But it's pretty sweet sounding bass, huh? Speed this up, slow it down. I'm just doing 138 here. That seems to be a standard kind of where things have been the past couple of years. Cool. And we're gonna do some sidechain compression. Excuse me. And let's see if I remember how to do this. Sidechain input, yes. Ableton was always really intuitive in their sidechaining. Need to, is it 3? I think, maybe. Oh, I don't think it's 3. Kick. It's the other one, 2. All right. Cool. Nice. It's starting to sound familiar. Man, we can go real heavy with that too. I've always really enjoyed Ableton's compressor. They have a really good compressor. Yeah, we can have a lot of fun with this. And just some normal. See how much that's just, even that by itself is. I mean, I know anybody that knows really kind of anything with electronic music knows about sidechaining, but it's an it's an overlooked kind of thing, especially for like Psytrance bassline design. Otherwise, it just sticks out a little too much. Well, let's go back in here and play with some velocity stuff. Be cool to like push some of these notes down a little lower, you know? Get something a little different. So you could probably hear just how subtle but different it makes the groove and the entire bass line. Because it's like it's open on some of the notes and then it's closed down on some more, so it makes it more open or percussive depending on how we program it. Which makes it even all that more psychedelic. Let's play with a filter more. You can just hear how much that velocity is really affecting. Playing in tandem with the frequency cutoff of the filter. Maybe there's a better sweet spot. I'm not sure. Just kind of playing around here. A little too harsh there. I need to open that up a little bit. There we go. What do these modes do? Nice. See what this erosion thing is. I don't remember it. Oh, that's cool. Shoot, we gotta be careful. We might have ourselves a track. Starting with one. That's cool. Could use that for like a bass layer if you wanted to layer on top of that. Maybe we'll do that later. Let's group these things. How do I do that? Now I'm just kind of adjusting the volume to get things to sit together how I feel. I usually like the kick a little bit louder than the bass, but the bass needs to kind of be really prominent up. That's kind of the new style these days. Sounds good. It's part of the new style that I really do like for the modern sound. Okay, how do I group these? Group tracks. Okay, cool. Oh, are those together? Oh yeah, cool. Just like that. And we can compress this together. And you can hear it kind of just fills it out a little bit more. It makes things just glued. You know, we're only taking maybe a decibel, maybe two off. The ratio a little lower. Bypassed. Let's see here. Some of that tack through. I kind of like that. Sounds nice. Bypass. Make it. It's super subtle. It just kind of adds a little bit extra glue. See what else we can just have some fun with here. I don't know if you guys have this one, but Decapitator. This one is definitely not free, but it's a great saturation distortion plugin. Probably not on the kick and bass bus, but I mean, subtle amounts you could probably use it for sure, but I like to keep things clean. Especially on the kick. The bass you can have a little bit more fun with. The kick just needs to be really clean. That's why we didn't compress it or anything. But we might do some little EQ moves here. Maybe boost up that low end a little bit, see where that gets us. Just looking to add subtle things, make it the best we can make it, you know? Why stop at okay when you can have amazing? So, here we are, tweaking with the kick again. We're gonna fade these kicks in a little bit. You can see these are already longer kicks, but I wonder what it'd sound like if they were shorter. I have to play with that here in a bit. See how, I mean, because they're already kind of overlapping a bit. I wonder, can I do this? Oh, no. All right. Let me try it again. I thought I could do that. Okay, so that shortens it. Okay. Now I remember. Okay, so I'm going to shorten that to like an 8th note. I think that's what that is, roughly. Give myself a clean one there. Delete those other two. Bring this on over. How do I copy that? I did not copy that, just moved it. There we go. Okay. Another great example. See how much that tightened it up a bit? Again, super subtle thing. You can have it either way you want. Neither is better or worse than the other. But there's just a little bit extra rumble with this kick that isn't there when we cut it, because the kick and the bass just aren't overlapping as much. Even with the sidechain, it just tightens it up and makes it more polished. So we're literally only using what we need out of the kick. And then we're fading the rest so it doesn't sound too weird. It sounds like a normal kick. Let's do some extra EQ moves here. Just kind of playing around with things, seeing how I like it. Real subtle things here, but the subtlety adds up and it makes it sound massive and polished. Without the compressor. We can use a different compressor if we want. I like this Red 3 for bus compression. I haven't used it in Psytrance yet though. Usually I only use it on as kind of a master bus compressor. Not a kick and bass one per se. Because you can hear it can be pretty intense in terms of bus compression. Just that normal Ableton one, just to keep it in the box more. Nice. Just for funsies, I think we can sample this back down. Resampling, I think it is. And I gotta go over here. This part's obviously completely unnecessary, but, you know, if you like to, something's missing. What am I doing? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I got a little one too many. Let me bring that. No, I won't. I'll just delete that and then move that back there. See if that gives us what we need. Looks like it. And, well, I mean, there we go. There's your kick and bass loop. Beginning of that first one, that first kick got a little short. Is there because there's a fade on it? Alright, let me disable that. Okay. Well, I mean, you kind of get the gist. This isn't really important anyways. I was just kind of doing it as a visual representation. And there's something I'm noticing here. You see how these are off? That's the plug-in delay compensation I find that Ableton has. This was infuriating for me because this is what drove me away from Ableton. Every time I'd resample, things would be off a little bit. And, oh, I just hated that. I don't miss that. But anyways, Yeah, there you are, man. I mean, that's pretty much a close to free Psytrance, the modern kick and bass. Cheers, man. Hope it helps.